Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are. Welcome to this live Q&A session for the International Compliance Association qualifications. My name is Jonathan Bowdler. I'm the Head of Regulatory Compliance at International Compliance Training. And we've got an hour maximum together right now for me to basically hopefully answer any questions or queries that you might have when it comes to studying with the International Compliance Association for one of their qualifications. Now, the way I've got this planned is about 10 to 15 minutes or so. I've got a couple of slides to run through that might give you a little bit more information, the information you need to decide which is the right qualification for you. But at the same time, you'll see on your screen there's a little text box, and you can type your questions into there at any time while I'm presenting, and I will keep glancing at that little text box, and I will try and answer the questions as we go along. But once I finish my little presentation with the slides, I'm then also sort of opening up the rest of the session purely to Q&A, so that you can ask me any questions you like about ICA and ICT and the qualifications, and I will do my best to answer them for you right here and now. And if there are any questions that I can't answer, I'll either take them away with me with a promise to get back to you individually, or I'll point you in the right direction where you will be able to find your answers. Okay, so let me begin by just addressing what are usually the main questions that get brought up when we run these briefing sessions. And those questions are, first and foremost, which qualification is the right one for me at which level? Because I'm sure that any of you who have taken the time to tune into this webinar have had a look at the qualifications framework and know that we offer three key streams of qualification: in regulatory compliance, in financial crime compliance, and in anti-money laundering. And across those three streams, we then also offer different levels of qualification, from entry level with certificates through advanced certificates, diplomas, and postgraduate diplomas. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about those different streams of qualification and those different levels, and then hopefully that will give you the information you need to then decide which is the right qualification for you. If, as I'm going through that information, I haven't answered a specific question that you need answering, then that's when you need to type in the text box. And as I say, I'll try and pick them up as I go along, or at the end of the session, I'll basically work through any outstanding questions. But there is a second big question, and one I want to address straight away, and that is, how will an ICA qualification help my career? Well, the key to an ICA qualification is probably in the I. It's international. We've been running now for 16 years this year, and we have offices as well as in London. We have offices in the Middle East, in Dubai. We have offices in Singapore, and we just opened a new office just before Christmas in New York. And we also have relationships with other organizations around the world. So we are represented in other countries, such as in Moscow and in the Channel Islands, Isle of Man, and other jurisdictions, for example, in the Caribbean. So you can be sure that your qualification has that sort of international backing to it, that international flavor, which is necessary, absolutely required in today's global industry. Having said that, we also then tailor the way in which the qualifications are delivered and the ways in which they're assessed, so that you can apply the knowledge you learn from the course materials to your own jurisdiction and your own industry sector. So we run courses, for example, in the United Kingdom that are United Kingdom specific. We run courses in Singapore that are Singapore specific. In many jurisdictions, we run what we call the international versions of our qualifications, where the actual material is the same, depending, and it doesn't matter where you study in the world, your reading material is the same. But then through your assessments and the tasks and the whole learning process, we then encourage you and give you the tools to apply it to your own jurisdiction and your own firm. So in terms of a qualification, it also has the backing of Manchester Business School, the Alliance Manchester Business School as it is now known, one of the top 10 business schools in the world, and they have been our quality assurance partner now for the whole 16 years that we have been running. and their stamp appears on your certification, whether it be a diploma or a certificate, to show that quality assurance has been done, and that the ICA qualifications are backed with rigorous academic framework, as well as being very practical and focused on what you need to know to carry out your role effectively in the workplace. So we have to reach that balance, of course, between academic rigor, but at the same time being practical and being useful to you in the workplace. Now, what you learn on the course will help you hopefully in two ways when it comes to your career. It will help you understand your own job and your own role that you're currently carrying out better, to be able to understand not just what you have to do, but why you have to do it, the context of what you do. And one of the joys of doing one of the ICA qualifications is that opportunity to step back and actually step away from your day job a little bit and look at the bigger picture. And I'll talk to you a little bit about that in a moment. And then secondly, it should also help you and give you the skills and knowledge to prepare you for your next role, the next step in your career, whether it be a sideways step into a new area or a promotion within your own area. And we would always encourage our delegates when they're doing these courses to think about how they can apply the learning both now, but also how they might be able to apply the learning going forward in their next role. So the final point I'd say on the career piece as well is actually in many jurisdictions now, ICA qualifications are becoming sort of recognised as a stamp of quality and actually appear quite often in job adverts as a desirable qualification. So it can actually help you get a foot in the door. There's over 120,000 people globally now who hold an ICA qualification. So they're well known and well respected, and they can actually help you get a foot in the door for the interview. And then, of course, it's up to you how well you do in your interview for that next position. But hopefully, again, what you learn on the course will prepare you and give you some real skills that you'll be able to demonstrate in an interview process to either get promoted in your current organisation or move on to that next role. Okay, so let me just a couple of minutes just give you a tiny bit more background about ICA. Some of you obviously already know who we are, you've done your research. Others, you may have come across us in the last few weeks when you've been looking for some kind of qualification to enhance your career. But we, as I say, have been going now since 2001, and we have all of these centres. If you look at the colours on this screen, although it's a little bit small, you'll see that where we have the blue centres, that's where we actually do face-to-face training, and we have partners or our own offices. And where we have the red little dots, that's where our members are currently based. So I think it's 84, 86 countries around the world now where we have members. And as I say, the offices are beginning to expand. We've moved into New York just before Christmas. The American market's an incredibly dynamic and interesting market for us. And whilst we've had some footholds there for the last few years working with some of the blue chip major organizations, we now want to get in there and offer our qualifications to anybody and everybody, particularly looking at sort of medium-sized and smaller firms as well. So the ICA, an established professional organisation, and the purpose of the ICA, or the mission of the ICA, is to professionalise the compliance industry so that compliance professionals can be seen on the same footing as legal professionals or accountancy professionals, that kind of career structure to be available to people all the way from when they join an organisation, straight from school or university, all the way through to a board level position, an important senior management role within the organisation. And the ICA community, the ICA as a profession, is there to support its members in achieving that. So the professional community itself, you will become an affiliate member as a student, and that membership of the ICA gives you access to all of the ICA study materials. Now again, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail here about the resources that are at your disposal, but just to give you a rough idea, there's about 7,000 different types and different individual pieces of learning material or access to learning materials available via the ICA website. And as a student affiliate member, you will have access to those. Once you qualify at the advanced certificate level, which is the second level up, you will be able to use the designation AICA. an associate of the International Compliance Association. So you will have that first level designation, and that membership then, ongoing membership, you have to complete a little bit of CPD each year, as with all professional bodies, and you will then have that professional membership to be able to start to build a career upon. For those of you a little bit more advanced, looking at doing the diploma, which is more of a sort of management level role, then you become a member of the ICA, and again, continuous professional development each year, 35 hours of professional development. You maintain that membership, and you could use the designation MICA going forward. You also get a rather lovely little lapel pin, so that when you're at events, you can see who the other ICA members are. And then finally, the top level of membership, as with most professional organisations, is fellowship. And fellowship is available for those who have been a member for 5 years or more, or those who complete our highest level qualification, the postgraduate. So you can see there are 4 different levels of membership within the ICA, and again, it takes you all the way through the career path journey and the studying and learning journey from the lower level qualifications, the entry level qualifications, through to being a fellow of the organisation and a senior compliance professional. Okay. Oh, and there's a little picture of the badges that you get, the little lapel pins. You get a different coloured one when you become a fellow, just to demonstrate that you've had that experience. And as I very briefly already mentioned, when you are on the courses, the one thing that ICA and ICT, the training arm of ICA, prides itself on is the student support that we give. Obviously, in some jurisdictions, some of you, you'll be able to come along and do face-to-face workshops, and that's great because the dynamic you get in the workshop is a wonderful learning experience. It's my favourite part of the job when I take these workshops, and we all learn together and we network and we find out about best practices, etc. I'll talk about the workshops in a little bit more detail in a moment. But in between those workshops, when you're not there, or if you're a distance learning student anyway, because you're in a jurisdiction where you can't get to a workshop, the student support is online, and we give you as much support as we can with things like how-to guides, how to study effectively, how to write an assignment, how to prepare effectively for the exam. So we give you lots of support, just basically stopping short of telling you what to put in the answers of your assessment, because clearly we can't do that, but we can help with the studying, we can help with the technique, and we can help with your research and resources to help you find the information you need. So that student support is there, and from the ICT, the learning platform that we use to manage your progress through your courses, we have all of the course materials delivered on this professional learning platform. It's used by many universities, and your coursework is there, the webinars are there, there are virtual classrooms similar to this but more interactive that we run via this learning platform, and we give you things like self-assessment questions and tasks that you can use to practice and to apply your knowledge as you work through the course. So whilst there are, in some jurisdictions, the face-to-face workshops around which you can build the course, and the other key milestones, of course, are the assessments, whether it be just an exam or whether it be assignments and an exam at the end as well. You build your course around those milestones, but the support is there online via the learning platform, and if necessary, there's a Q&A forum, a live chat forum, and you can always contact us via email or the phone. So we at ICT are very keen that while you're studying with us, if you need support, if you need help, there will be somebody to talk to you. Okay, so I think I've already mentioned the workshop, but there's a couple of photos here that just sort of show you that, fortunately, I mean, I've been with ICT for 8 or 9 years now, coming up to 9 years this year, and some of my colleagues have been there that time as well. And we've developed the workshop style, the ICT style, to be professional, to be networking, to learn from each other and examine best practice, to be pragmatic. How do we use the knowledge? How do we apply what we've learned? But on top of all of that, and I hope some of these pictures show as well, that they're fun, they're enjoyable. It's an opportunity to meet with like-minded people, to actually get the relief of knowing sometimes that other people face the same issues and stresses and concerns that you face in other organizations, and to learn from each other. So we do a lot of networking, we do a lot of group discussions and group work. We challenge each other. But we do all of it whilst we're having fun as well. And then at the end of the workshops, we will review and say, so what have we learned and how can we use it? And we try and make the workshops that sort of key to being very practical in application of your studying. Now, some of you won't be able to attend workshops, or you might choose not to attend workshops if it doesn't suit your study style. For those of you who don't, we have what we call the virtual classrooms to replace them, where we run 2-hour virtual classroom sessions at specific points during the course, where, again, if you're really lucky, you might see me sitting there waving at you, asking you questions, asking you to interact with me, and working through some key learning points and practical parts of the course. And again, both the virtual classrooms and the workshops, we also do as much as we can to help you with the assessment of the course, so preparation for assignments and preparation for exams or tests. We will do our best in those forums when we're talking to you live to help you in any way we can. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, just for 5 minutes, is using governance, risk and compliance as an example, and I'm using this as my example stream because it's the one that I look after at ICT. I'm going to talk you through quickly the structure, the levels within governance, risk and compliance, and then I'll very briefly talk about the different levels within AML and financial crime as well, to give you that sort of, if you like, a little bit of insight so you can choose the right stream and the right level. But this is where you probably want to start asking questions potentially, or you can wait until the end to start those questions coming through. But by all means, just raise any questions as we go, and I'll try and answer them as I can as we go along. First of all, why should you study governance, risk and compliance? And it's a very valid question. Why should you? Well, I am a little bit passionate about this area, and I don't feel embarrassed about that at all, because I love the fact that what we do is really focused on constant evolving change. One thing a compliance professional is bored. You are never ever bored. And sometimes there's too much change, or you might think there's too much change. But because there's so much change, you have to manage it. And we sort of understand that every day we go into the office is going to be different from the previous day. New risks are going to emerge, and with those risks, as well as challenges, opportunities will appear. So we've got to start looking at how the change we see in the regulatory environment impacts our business. And because it's constant, then this is one of the reasons why it's such a great area to work in, because, as I say, whilst day to day you may be on one particular project, in a few months' time you won't be on that project anymore. And how many people who work in a compliance role have the same job title or job description 1 year to the next? It's actually quite rare. So there's that dynamic change environment that's there. What we've also seen, certainly in the last 2 or 3 years, and it began really post-credit crisis, is this change from a compliance framework of having rules and requirements that tell you what you can do and what you can't do, and you having to evidence that you are either doing what you're supposed to or not doing what you're not supposed to. We've seen this shift towards actually regulatory bodies, such as the regulators themselves, but also governments and ministries, want to regulate behaviour, or at least change behaviour, manage behaviour. And so we're seeing this change now to consider more about why do people do what they do, and how can we change behaviour in industry to bring about the desired behaviours. We've seen many examples in the past of poor behaviour, whether it be scandals that led to things such as the credit crisis, or mis-selling scandals, or things like the BP oil health and safety issues and scandal there, the leaking of various documents, the fines that some of the large organisations have had. We examine on the courses lots of these case studies and examples to understand what went wrong, and quite often we can see it was behaviour of individuals or groups. And when you learn why it went wrong, you can then say, so what can we do to change the behaviour to encourage the right kind of behaviour? So we look at things like the way people are paid, the way people are remunerated and rewarded, as to what kind of behaviour will we expect to see. I quite often get asked when people have finished an ICT course, they have their ICA qualification, and they go, what should I study next? And we touch on this subject a little bit in all our courses, but actually basic psychology is key, because in the area we work in, risk and compliance and corporate governance, we are dealing with human beings, we are dealing with people. And so understanding what motivates them, why they behave the way they do, is absolutely fascinating, and can really be very useful in doing your job effectively. We've also therefore seen the knock-on effect here in terms of the change in the role of a compliance professional. No longer is it a subject matter expert who knows the rules and regulations and can just tell the business what they are, maybe monitor and check that you are complying with them. That still has to be done, but actually the role of compliance is now to be seen as a business partner, somebody who is trusted by the business, who is there to help the business achieve what the business is trying to do, albeit within a heavily regulated industry. So the role of the compliance officer, and therefore the skills needed to be an effective compliance professional, are also constantly evolving and changing. And hence this focus at the moment on behaviour, and that, for example, opens up the whole area of how good are your communication and influencing skills, because they are key for a compliance professional. Then we've got the fact that because most industries, and certainly most of you will come from a financial services industry background, but some of you may be from, say, pharmaceuticals or betting and gaming or an associated industry or health industries. So there's various different industries where there's a lot of regulation and legislation. And whoever, as an individual firm, applies the legislation and regulation in the most efficient and effective way to their business, i.e., you do your job in terms of managing regulatory risk, but at the same time you support your business in achieving its corporate objective, its business objectives, you actually give your firm a competitive advantage. So compliance historically, and it may still be in some firms, has in the past been seen almost as a business prevention unit, something that gets in the way of doing business and keeps saying, no, you can't do that, or no, you can't do this. Well, that's not good enough anymore. Whilst that is a way of managing risk, it's not a commercial way of managing risk, and it's not a positive way that would encourage the business to bring you into the business and use you as a business enabling function rather than business prevention. So again, we look at how you can make a contribution to the business, how you can contribute to the overall commercial success of the business, whilst also making sure that you are managing the regulatory risk, which is your job. And then finally, because of all of these developments, because of the impact and the importance of regulation and legislation in our industries, there is now a full career path from entry-level positions. And I was in, where was I? I was in Edinburgh a couple of nights ago doing a briefing session and a hot topic session. And two of the participants there were straight from university. And they were on a graduate trainee scheme, but they were also being trained in compliance as part of that scheme. And right the way through then to being a board director, maybe a risk director or legal and risk director, or maybe even compliance director. So there's a career path from one end to the other. And this means that it's a profession. And what we at ICA are now trying to do is, as I say, professionalize that profession, give it that standing that the legal profession, the accountancy profession already have, because it is different to both of those, and it's very key to the success of an organization to have pragmatic, excellent communicators in compliance roles to mean that that firm will be successful. So that's why I love working in compliance. That's why we see it as so important, and that is what we try and bring out in our courses so that you really do love what you do, get better at what you do. And then, the last point we always say with any session that we run on a course is, so how are you now going to go and sell this back to your business? How are you going to go and convince the people that you now work with that what you are doing is going to help them, is a benefit to them? My favourite phrase in all of my workshops is, show them the benefits. Show the rest of your business the benefits of what you do, what you can give to them. So, very briefly, there were some key areas of focus on here. I'm not going to go through these in depth because I want to give you the chance to ask any questions. But it is important that you have a look at the syllabus. This is just sort of key headings. on some of the syllabus from some of the courses. So for the compliance courses, we look at the big picture. Why do we have the regulatory environment that we have? How do you then demonstrate that effective governance, risk and compliance structures and systems and controls actually are a real benefit to the business? How do you utilize the resources you have efficiently? And what kind of systems and controls you need to bring in to manage regulatory risk, but to do so in a really positive, pragmatic way? And the last bit on there is, personal journey in terms of you demonstrating, first of all, to yourself that you're developing as a professional, to your firm that you're developing and that you can bring benefits to them. And even externally, regulators obviously like to see where's the evidence that the people holding these key roles in your business aren't just following internal procedures that have been there for a long time. They're challenging them. They're asking questions. They're making sure they're staying up to date and cutting edge with what is going on in the regulatory environment, and then thinking about how that affects their business. Okay, so these are the key qualifications under the governance, risk and compliance. You'll notice the lower level qualifications at certificate and advanced certificate are in compliance, because they are more, first of all, certificate is introductory, a really good foundation in understanding what compliance is, what it's there to achieve. The advanced certificate is more of a practitioner role. It's for people probably already in the role, in a more junior position, or wanting to move into the role, that already have experience in their industry, so they know it's a regulated industry, and maybe as either sales or marketing or operational people, you know that what you do is regulated, so you have some understanding. But you need to know how to do the job effectively. That's where the advanced certificate comes in. So those two are both in compliance, as in regulatory compliance. When you get to diploma level, we're now talking about managing. We're talking not necessarily about managing people, although for a lot of people that will be the case. We're talking about managing other managers in the business. We're talking about managing the expectations of senior management and the board. And we're talking about managing systems and controls so that they are, first of all, compliant, and you know they are as they're written, as they're approved, as they're put into place and embedded, but also then that you have the appropriate monitoring plans in place to provide assurance that they are then being followed. So we're looking at providing assurance to senior management, and we're looking at developing strategies for running an effective, proactive, enabling compliance function. So that's for people who either are or have aspirations to be managers in compliance, and that's why governance and risk are so important in this area, because you are always managing risk when in compliance. And as you become more senior, the information that you are privy to, the information that you hold and that you then have to escalate and communicate with the rest of the business, influences the decisions of senior managers. It influences the governance of the business. And then finally, postgraduate, professional postgraduate, this is equivalent to half a master's degree. This is for leaders, people who either are or have aspirations to be executive, senior management on the board. And it's very much more about strategic developments and about the future, about what is coming in the future and how you position your firm to both manage the risks, but also to take advantage of the risks. So it's very much 10 years experience, 3 at a senior level. And you don't have to complete all of these levels from the introductory to the postgraduate. You come in at whatever level suits you now and where you want to be in 6 months, a year from now. So I would always encourage people, if they're sort of wavering between two areas, let's say the advanced certificate and the diploma, I would say, look at doing the diploma, because yes, it will stretch you that bit more, but actually, once you've gone through that process, it's going to last you longer. You're going to learn more skills that will go further into your career for you. So look at the different levels, consider which is the right level for you, and then if you're not 100% sure yourself, contact us, and we will advise you on a one-to-one basis. Because it can be very difficult to give this kind of advice to a whole group of people. And I'm just looking out, I've got a list of people here. There's quite a large group of people watching this. So of course it can be quite difficult for me to give you one-to-one advice. So by all means, if you aren't 100% sure after this webinar and after you've looked at the syllabuses and the different streams, then contact us and we will talk to you one-to-one. I'll just mention that as well as the main streams and the 4 key levels, we do run what we call specialist certificates, and they're focused learnings in key development areas. So, for example, under governance, risk and compliance, we have a corporate governance specialist certificate, which is a sort of key foundation piece in understanding what corporate governance is and how important it is to the success of the business. And we have another one on conduct risk, because the focus on behaviour, which conduct is really just another word for, is so high in many jurisdictions. We've done a little specialist certificate at certificate level, so relatively introductory, on really understanding what conduct risk is and being able to apply systems and controls in your business. So what we tend to find is most of our students come in to take one of our core qualifications, certificate, advanced certificate, diploma or postgraduate, and then perhaps on an ongoing basis, once a year, every couple of years, they'll look at our specialist certificates and use one of those to top up their learning or to improve their learning in a key area that's particularly of interest to them. Because, for example, if I move on for a moment to the money laundering and the financial crime areas, as well as the certificate, the advanced certificate, the diploma, which are available in both financial crime prevention and anti-money laundering. So the same 3 levels that I've talked about for governance, risk and compliance are available for financial crime prevention and available for anti-money laundering. At the top, the financial crime postgraduate qualification is actually the 2 combined. So that's very slightly different in that it's a postgraduate diploma in financial crime compliance that covers all financial crime, including AML. But at diploma, advanced certificate and certificate, we split anti-money laundering and the rest of financial crime because of the key focus on money laundering. Globally, it is a key risk. It includes sanctions regimes, it includes terrorist financing, key areas of concern globally, not just to industry, but to governments and society. And therefore, we look at those in much more depth on the anti-money laundering course than we do, for example, on the compliance course. The compliance courses are broader in scope. They look at all regulatory compliance. And whilst that includes anti-money laundering and financial crime, obviously because they are just one unit of a much larger course, we don't go into as much depth as you do if you specialise in financial crime prevention or anti-money laundering. On the financial crime prevention side, you also then look at all of the other financial crimes that aren't money laundering. So you look really at the different types of fraud and fraud typologies, looking at market abuse issues, bribery and corruption, or all the emerging topics. And again, because of the focus on that one area of financial crime, you can dive down into much more detail in understanding both the regulation and regulatory environment, but also, of course, the actual financial crimes themselves. And a lot of the work on financial crime and AML is case study based, looking at cases that have actually gone through the whole system, how they're identified, analysed and addressed through the enforcement piece, if there was enforcement, through the courts, if there was a criminal case as well. And you take those learnings and you ask yourself, how can I use what I've learned from that to improve what I do in my firm now and what I can do for my firm going forward? There's also plenty of specialist certificates in the area of financial crime, because every area that the financial services industry or associated industries develops products and services in, the criminals look. They look for how can we use those products and services to commit crime, whether it be a fraud crime or a market abuse crime, or whether it be the money laundering after they've committed another crime to benefit from the proceeds of that crime. So we do things like trade-based money laundering, we do things like customer due diligence, specialist certificates, looking specifically at key areas. We're introducing one on cyber security and cyber crime at the moment. So all the emerging topics around cryptocurrency and blockchain, we bring those out as well. And as I said earlier, quite a lot of people will do one of the standard financial crime qualifications, like the diploma in AML or the diploma in financial crime, and then they will take an advanced certificate once every year or 2 years or so in an emerging area of interest to them to keep their learning fresh and cutting edge. So I hopefully have given you a bit of an overview. I know I've been talking for half an hour straight at you, and I've been talking a little bit about why you should do an ICA qualification, the benefits it will bring to you. I've talked a little bit about how the process works in terms of the support that you get from ICT and the workshops or the virtual classrooms as well in terms of interaction and trying to make it as practical as possible. And then I've talked a little bit about the different levels of qualification under the three main streams: the compliance stream, the financial crime stream, and the money laundering stream. And each of those has 4 key levels, but there's also the specialist certificates as well. Your job now is to either, from what you've been listening to today, have your decision as to which course you think you want to do has been confirmed, or I've given you food for thought and you want to think about it. Go back to the syllabus, go back to the diagrams that are available on the ICA website. You can download diagrams that show the different levels of course and the different streams of course in a nice table, 1 page, and look and decide that's the right one for me. Once you've decided, then all the information you need to enroll is there. There is an intake. Actually, for any of you based in the United Kingdom, there is an intake on the United Kingdom courses in governance, risk and compliance coming up in the next few weeks. So you also need to look at the calendars and the dates of the courses, when they come in, when you can apply, when you are expected to start studying. So you need to work out, of course, the time span. And of course, you need to think about the funding. So if you have any questions about the funding side of it, if you're paying for it yourself or you need support from the business, or the business is paying, but you might need a business case from us or something that we can help you with so that you can get that funding from your employer. So go away now and think about what you want to achieve, which is the right qualification for you. Come and talk to us if you need any advice or guidance whatsoever, and we will do our best to help. And if there are any further questions, there's nothing in the inbox and just at the moment that hasn't already been addressed. So I'll leave this open for any questions for a moment while I'm just sort of finishing off here. But as I say, the key point is contact us. Come and talk to us either by phone, by email, or use the website to find out as much as you need to know. And then what I really hope is that I'll see you at a workshop at some point in the coming months. I think I said right at the beginning, actually, my favourite part of this job, by a very long way, is running the workshops. We do make them fun, but at the same time, we make sure that the learning that you get at the end of it, you can take away and you really can apply. So, nobody's typing in any questions just as we finish. Let me just have a quick look at my computer and make sure everybody's online. Yep. So I'll give it 1 or 2 more minutes and then I will sign off. So basically, good luck. I hope you do come and study an ICA qualification. And thank you very much for spending 40 minutes of your time with me this morning, because even that is a sacrifice that you've made, but I hope it's been useful to you and you will be able to use that. Oh, questions popped up. Let's just have a quick look. You'll have to bear with me because my eyesight's appalling. Let's see. Worked in law firms. Right, yeah, okay, very good point. Somebody's worked in law firms, got the diploma already in AML, and thinking about how do I transfer it between organisations. I would say that probably when you look at it globally, about 80% of our students come from a financial services or financial services related background. And the qualifications themselves originally were written for compliance professionals from financial services. In the last 5 or 6 years, we have seen other industries, such as the legal industry, this person who's asked these questions, a lawyer, worked for law firms, bring in a requirement for compliance professionals, bring in requirement for compliance reporting. So the role of a compliance professional is making its way out into other industries. And the great thing is that whilst obviously our qualifications historically have been based on financial services, that's only an example. That's an industry being used as an example for what is compliance, what is an effective system and control, what is good risk management. And all of the best practices that we've developed over the years, that we've both brought in from external sources and developed ourselves, they are applicable across any regulated industry. The challenge that you have is to take the learning from the ICA course and say, how do I apply this to my current industry, or how do I move from my current industry into the one that I find most interesting? Now, again, when you're studying, this is something your tutor can help you with, but even potentially your colleagues, the people you're working with, can help you with. At the workshops, you will be networking with people from different types of firms, from different industry sectors, and even different industries. So what we would do is we would encourage you to talk to each other about how would I get into your industry, or what does your industry do differently? Let me give you a little example. I worked for GE for a while, GE Money in the UK, and I worked for the bank side of things. And we got a new head of risk. And that head of risk came in from GE. It was an internal appointment. But when he came in and I sat down with him and started talking to him about the risks and the regulation around what we did as GE Money, he actually at one point sat back and went, wow, you've got it easy, haven't you? And I must have looked shocked, because obviously being a compliance professional, I was like, oh, we've got so much to do and there's so much regulation. And the reason he said you've got it easy is because he came from the GE aeronautical area of business. He was a risk manager in the building of jet engines. Now, if you think financial services is heavily regulated, you should see the aeronautical industry when it comes to compliance. If we get things wrong, people might suffer. There may be some mis-selling involved. Markets might suffer a bit. But if you get it wrong when you're doing compliance with jet engines, aeroplanes fall out of the sky. So it's interesting to compare the risk levels and the types of risks and think about how you can transfer your knowledge and skills from one industry to another. So I'm not 100% sure I've actually answered the question as asked, which is, how can I transfer that knowledge? I mean, the key is to think about talking to as many people as you can in the industry you want to get into. And you can do that as part of the ICA network. If you hold an ICA qualification, especially if you're a member of ICA, I think there's something like a £95 fee each year, then you've got that network, all the resources at your disposal to network and talk to other ICA members. There's a forum, an ICA forum on LinkedIn. You can go onto there and you can post questions on there. And there are thousands, I think 10,000 people are members of that forum. And again, you can get advice and guidance from fellow ICA members on what's the best thing for you to do next. Right, the questions are beginning to come in now, so let me just take another look here. What's the time commitment in studying for diploma? It does, of course, vary. Different skills, different people have different ways of studying and different ways of applying their time. But we would normally say somewhere around 6 to 7 hours a week over the course of the diploma is adequate. Some people will get away with less than that because they have a different way of applying themselves. Others will want to do more than that because they enjoy studying as much as possible around a topic. But we would probably say 6 hours a week is about right for a diploma, maybe 4 to 5 for the advanced certificate over a slightly shorter period of time. And whilst you're on that type of qualification, it's going to last a few months. There will be troughs and there will be peaks. So you might, when you've handed an assignment in, for example, have a week or two off. There isn't a workshop for a few months and you've done the assignment, so you don't do anything for a couple of weeks. But then in the weeks running up to handing an assignment in, or the weeks running up to an exam, you might do extra because, of course, you've got a deadline to meet. So it does depend a little bit on yourself, but it's equivalent to studying, I would say, trying to study, if you can, an hour each working day. Now, that is quite demanding. These qualifications require you to put in the time and the effort. But of course, the more you put in, the more you get back out from them. And it's an investment of time, but actually the rewards in terms of the knowledge and the skills and being part of the wider ICA community, obviously it's up to you to decide, but I would say very much worth it. Okay, what else have we got here? I've worked in financial services. Part of my role was AML and KYC. Which level? Right, so if you've already worked in an industry, you've actually done the qualification, you've done the job, so you're now thinking about which level is right for someone who's reasonably experienced. you're definitely looking at minimum of the advanced certificate, but probably the diploma, because there's nothing in a diploma qualification that would be, let's say, mentally challenging, as in, one of my passions is physics, cosmology, and some of that stuff I just can't get my head around, and I have to study and reread and think, there's nothing that difficult to understand, but there is work to work through and then think about how you use it and apply it. So the diploma, for example, is equivalent probably to sort of degree level type education, but it's in something It's in financial services compliance, or it's in whichever industry you work in, risk management or AML. So if you are experienced in the industry, you have some years industry experience, generally speaking, the diploma is probably the way to go, because it gives you that broad piece, and it's going to give you, as well as a good education in what you currently do, potentially prepare you for the next step as well when it comes to being a senior team leader or a manager, or potentially even a head of. Then the diploma is a better qualification for that. Okay, so what else have we got here? Thank you. Most of the financial services require experience of compliance. Okay. I need to read the rest of that one. Can you just open that last question up for me so I can see the rest of it? Thanks. That's happening on the screen. I got it. Yeah. Okay. How can I learn about 3 regulations? Is there a course focused on FCA compliance? Right. Okay. There is. It all depends on your jurisdiction. So I'm guessing you're looking at a particular role and you're seeing people saying, we want experience of compliance, we want experience of people with MiFID, which is the Markets in Financial Instruments Directive. Certain roles will require experience in those roles. If you haven't got experience in those roles, then probably you're not going to get an interview, you're unlikely to get a particular job in that particular area, because they're specifically looking for experience. What you will do, if you're in the UK, we, for example, look at the European directives, some of the key ones. We look at the FCA and the PRA, the Financial Conduct Authority and the Prudential Regulatory Authority, in quite a lot of detail, because they are the key regulators. So if you were, for example, to do the diploma in governance, risk and compliance, and you're looking for a UK role in AML or in, let's say, customer due diligence or financial crime prevention, then you will get a really good basis and grounding in understanding the regulatory environment in the United Kingdom, the key pieces of regulation and legislation. But we do tend to focus, whilst we do cover to the necessary level regulation and legislation, we don't. What we're trying to do is train you as professionals in the application of risk management in your role. So we're trying to train you to be professional risk managers, whether it be in AML or compliance or financial crime. And the regulation and legislation changes all the time. You remember the point I said right at the beginning about change management. So we don't actually spend too much time going through rules and what the regulations say, what the legislations say. We do some of it as required, but what we actually do is say, so what risks does your firm face? How is this going to impact your firm's ability to do its job? How do you influence and persuade people that they need to do what you're asking them to do? And I would say, therefore, that if you are applying for a job where you don't have experience, if you didn't have an appropriate qualification, you would really struggle to get an interview. If you're applying for a job and you have one or other, the experience or the qualification, then you hopefully may make the shortlist, or particularly for a firm who knows our qualifications, and most of the larger organisations actually do in-house ICA qualifications. We work with them in their own head offices. They know who we are. Then that should help you get a foot in the door. And your job really would be that when you're applying for these roles or putting yourself forward, to emphasise some of the key points that you have learned from the qualification, tying that back into your experience, albeit in a different industry, because you will be bringing fresh views to what's being asked. Sometimes the best students are people who are switching industries, or people with no experience, and they're changing a role, and they're coming because they ask questions that experienced people would never think to ask. So you're bringing that fresh perspective, but you're bringing it with the backing of an ICA qualification that shows you understand the regulatory environment, you know who the regulators are, you've got that big picture piece. But what you want is an opportunity to get into a business, get into a firm and make a difference. This is really so much easier to do when you're face-to-face in a workshop, when we talk about, what have you done in the past? How can you pull stuff you've done in the past and present it in such a way with your ICA qualification to an employer to say, you need to talk to me, so you get the interview, and then you know what to say at the interview to impress them. And we do help and advice on recruitment and helping people with jobs. We don't do it particularly formally when you're studying, but we have relationships with recruitment firms. And, the guys who teach, myself and my colleagues, we've all been in the industry, most of us, for 20 plus years. So we also know what makes a good applicant, what makes a good interview, what you need to do to get that next job. So, difficult to answer the question really fully for you, I appreciate, but if you want to get in contact with me, by all means, the person that asked that question, just get in contact with ICT, just drop them a line and say, with your contact details, can you get Jonathan to give me a call? And I'll give you a call, and we can talk it through one-to-one. Okay, there's no more outstanding questions, guys. I really do appreciate the time you spent with me today, and really those questions at the end as well, to try and personalize it a little bit for you as well. As I said right at the beginning, I hope I've given you food for thought. I hope I've helped you understand the structures and the levels and helped you make the decision as to which is the right ICA qualification for you. I'm not a salesperson, but I genuinely believe that 99.9% of the people that do our qualifications, talk to them. If you want to say, is doing an ICA qualification a good idea, find someone who's done one and ask them, because the feedback we get is great. And yeah, I really hope I see you at a workshop in the not too distant future. So thanks again once more, and just one final time, any questions, any queries about our courses, about what's right for you, just send an email or pick up the phone.